Alright, so here we are in the forward torpedo room. This is the forward part of the submarine. We'll be making our way aft in a second. These are the forward torpedo tubes. You had 3 on each side, so you had 6 torpedo tubes all together. As you can see, there's a war shot loaded, and then it also says empty. There's 3 tubes, one underneath the floor, and they'd be all war shot loaded when you went on a war patrol. After that, after all 6 were loaded, you had 4 that went on each section, so you'd have 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 torpedoes in this compartment. This is the crew berthing and a crew area where they could keep their stuff, and as you can see, the bulkhead is right there, so they did not have much room to store their stuff. There was no hot bunking on Silversides. There were other submarines that did hot bunking, and this is where they would bunk as well, and they would sleep above the torpedo tubes. As you can see, one of the torpedo tubes are loaded in the rack here, and is also as well as in here. Alright, and then this is your emergency diving and diver and escape trunk. To successfully escape from a World War II submarine, you had to have 3 things happen. 1, you had to be at a depth of 180 feet. You had to be trained to exit a submarine, and you would flood this chamber, go in the chamber, flood the door, close the door, flood the chamber, and you would release an ascending line with a bag filled with gasoline because it was lighter than water, and it would float, go right to the surface. And we used the Monson lung, which was created by Swede Monson, a lieutenant commander in the Navy at the time. Later became Admiral Monson. You would don the Monson lung, and you would follow the ascending line up to the surface. And if you did not breathe properly, you would get nitrogen in your blood, which would be equivalent to releasing a pop bottle with air bubbles, and you could not clear that from your body, so therefore you would end up having a problem. So, and you would have to have a decompression chamber in order to correct the problem, so most guys would pass away if they didn't make it. This is the bridal suite. This is where the lowest man on the totem pole would sleep. He would actually sleep where this ladder is here. As you can see here, here are the two rings where that would connect that bed. This ladder would not have been here during wartime procedures. Excuse me. As we move forward, this is the head and shower. This is the officer's shower and toilet. The men showered every 13 to 15 days, and so usually women frown when you hear that. Yeah, 15 days, that's the time that they showered. There was limited water on board U.S. War II submarines at the time, and you had a 12-step process to flush the toilet. You couldn't just flush the toilet. And as you did that, if you didn't do it correctly, you'd get an exploding toilet. And one of our commanding officers, our first commanding officer, Creasy Burlingame, had an exploding toilet and got a Chinese toilet. Also, we had a German submarine commander during the war that was never in submarines, that was rushed into submarines, and actually flooded his own submarine because he didn't know how to flush the toilet. And his name was Schlitt, and he lived to be 95 years old. So have that memory on your hands. So anyway, there's the toilets, and we'll see the enlisted crew's area later. Captain Burlingame allowed the crew to use these 2 areas even though they were for officers only. This is the sonar area. This is for the stealth, as well as the active and passive. Active is where you're making sounds and pinging, and the passive is where you're not making a noise, you're silently listening for enemy targets coming in. This is your watertight door. They would close this hatch if they were trying to keep the compartment dry from water. This is one of your high pressure air valves. If this compartment was taking on water, they could close this door, turn that handle, and add high pressure air to this compartment only to help with damage control teams appropriately. We have, as you can see, we have 2 lighting systems on board Silversides. We have red and we have white. During the day we ran white. At night we ran red to get our our eyes accustomed to the dark. And we also had blue lettering on listed above the red light bulb, and that is because during the war in the 40s they felt that at the time that blue was a better option, and they found it was not. They just didn't change the lettering. The next compartment you'll be visually seeing, and this is from the watertight door area for looking forward. Also, you have an emergency steering section right back here, and you also had one in the stern area as well. The next compartment would be the officer's country. Thank you, and hope you enjoyed the tour of the forward torpedo room of the USS Silversides submarine.